SoundCloud. This is AI 101, part of AI Salon for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. And I'm Peter Kaminsky. I'm the guild leader for AI 101. And we like to cover, I like to cover a bunch of different things. So we can start with basics and sometimes get really complicated, but I try to make it all easy and interesting. First up, real quick, I am like 3 weeks behind, or I've got like 3 weeks of these sessions queued up to post. I'm like this close. I've got a bunch of them actually uploaded to YouTube, but I need to like fill in the descriptions a little bit more. So I apologize for being behind on that. When they go up, let me share my screen. When they go up, they get listed on this website, and I put a link to this website. These are random generations here. I put a link to this website, and I'll do that in the chat right now. Many of you probably know this already. So they get listed right here on the homepage of this site, and then each meeting gets its own page, maybe with some notes, maybe with the AI summary, with the YouTube link, and stuff like that. So while we're on the site, let's look at another way you can use it. I'm slowly growing the topics listed here. And so I have a page for different topics. And if you click on those, you'll see pages on the site. Let me go back and do Midjourney. As I keep adding pages to the site, I try to make sure to kind of link them together so that you can see Midjourney was mentioned a few times. And then you can click on, this is one of the meetings. I guess these are mostly meetings, except for this one. This is a kind of information note that I posted once to the thing. I think when folks post something interesting, I try to get it up here. So I know there's a page a page linking to RJ's page of resources. Someday we'll actually maybe move a bunch of that stuff over to this website. So a thing that I haven't linked yet because it's still a work in progress is something called, I started calling it AI 101 building blocks. And these are topics that we've come back over and over and over. We've done a bunch of additional ones. I'll wait for a sec. Hey, Scott, good to see you. Just kind of getting into it. I was talking about this list of AI 101 building blocks. So we've done a bunch of sessions which are actually like 110 or 201 or 301 probably, because I've been going in kind of a random order. But I wanted to kind of circle back, and now it's getting more clear which things are which things kind of occur over and over, and how to kind of do them in order from simplest, like most basic, but you kind of need to do this, and then to build up from there. So this is where I got to. And my inspiration or my goal or something like that is for anybody and anybody and everybody who wants to be able to check off each of these things on their own computer or their own device. So not just see Pete do it on his computer, but actually have us walk through installs and stuff like that, even or getting used to things on everybody's computer. So maybe we can do some of that tonight, maybe not, because we're not set up enough for it. But over the next couple weeks, I'd like to have sessions where we check these off for anybody who wants to check them off. And then another thing that's become obvious is, at least in my conception of using AI, you want to know how to use your computer or your other device enough to be able to support your AI use. You'll get a lot more out of using AI if you can use your computer a little bit. including things that aren't on most people's list, probably. But so a personal knowledge manager like Obsidian, knowing Markdown, knowing HackMD. Um, so we've kind of gone over this a lot already, and depending if we should go over that again tonight, that would be great. Or if we've all got that checked off and we would like to move on to something else, that would be great. Adding to this list would be something that I would like to do as well, especially, the higher up stuff. So um, let me, I'm going to stop sharing the screen in a sec, but let me make my HackMD notes page for today. And we do that by going HackMD. I think to make one of these, you need an account. To visit somebody else's, you don't. But I haven't covered this before, but when I look at that building blocks thing, um, it's actually useful. I don't have it written down this way yet, but it's useful to have an account on HackMD. You don't absolutely need it to. You don't need it to collaborate with the way that I typically use it. But when you do have an account and you're signed in, and you go to somebody else's HackMD, um, this right here, my notes, is all the ones that I've created, and then collaborative notes, which I think I won't click on. Um, Collaborative notes is the ones that somebody else has created that I have visited. So it's a good way to keep track of, shoot, we took some awesome notes 2 weeks ago, and where was it? It's either in my notes or collaborative notes. Unless somebody has deleted that, I'll have a practice of taking notes here and then moving them to Obsidian and then onto the website. So anyway, so let me make my note for today. You just click new, and then you give it a juicy title like AI 101 and the date. You can type anything here, but there's a lot of reasons why that's kind of the format I use. And then I'll go to share and click read everyone, write everyone. You don't have to do that, but then that makes it easy for people joining. And then you copy the link here. You can actually change this to what you want if you want, but I typically don't. Um, and then I'll paste it here, and oops, I grabbed the view mode one. I like edit, and then I actually paste that, and then I put question mark both on it, and then we can explain that someday. But okay, so now you have a link there where you can go and type notes here, or watch me as I type notes. And a thing to notice, you don't have to log in, even though I'll start suggesting that people do. And then these buttons switch it from edit mode to both mode to view mode, depending on your preference. Okay, so let me start real quick while I'm still screen sharing, and let's make a list of topics that we might talk about today. So AI 101 building blocks. Yeah, it works. And you can see who's on the pad up here and see how many people and who they are. If they're signed in, you'll see their name. If they're not signed in, you'll see something else. A trick, I've got some meetings where these get literally hundreds or maybe even thousands of lines long, and you can click on somebody's name and it jumps you to where they're typing, where their cursor is. So that's useful to kind of catch up. Some people use Miro for this kind of thing. Miro is another good way to do this. And maybe someday we'll talk about Miro versus Miro versus HackMD. Okay. Hey folks. Hi Julia. Hi Danielle. We got started a little bit without you, but we're not too far. let me share my screen real quick again and point out what I kind of want to start working through every call, at least some, is making sure people can use their computer enough to use AI, and then making sure they know the basics of AI. And when I made this list, it's kind of interesting. It's like, well, it's actually kind of more basic to use a local LLM and a local image generator and then graduate to the cloud ones. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. Another one I added in honor of Danielle learning stuff on AI Salon is glossary items. We should have a whole glossary of, what's a model, what's a foundation model, what's fine tuning, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so um, I said it coming in. I I'm kind of like partway started on getting organized to do this kind of stuff. Um, I was hoping we would actually do some of this today. And I was hoping I would be brave enough to say, hey, who knows how to use, do this. And if we don't, let's walk through how to do it. Um, I'm finding myself a little bit shy to even ask that question because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but we're all newbies here, right? Um, just different levels of newbies. So I wanted to take a breather. Um, what would folks like to learn today or talk about or teach other people?
I'll go. Well, because you talked about the terminology, I want to know like just the ground up stuff. I also want to learn how, or even if my computer is even capable of installing how you're talking about. I don't even know the terminology to use. The
Local LLMs
yes,
or local
yes.
image
How
generators.
I don't even know if my computer, my MacBook is even capable of if it's strong enough to do
I
that.
I think it will be.
How you don't know what
And
I'm you don't know what I have? What if I'm on like a 1983? I don't know. It probably couldn't even go on the
I'm pretty
internet.
sure you don't. Um, uh, Let me see while
Like
I'm looking at myself. I'm
what
distracted
kind of
because I'm not very
yeah, what
bright.
capacity? And then if I
So,
did, how much would it drag down my would it like bog down my computer so much that it couldn't do other things?
yep. Those are great questions. And let me do a little bit of practice and maybe other people can start doing this too. Um, I'm going to go super fast here, though. I mean, partly super fast and partly not. Um, One of the things I used to put agenda here, and I ended up putting topics because if it's an agenda, then it seems like you want to walk through all of it. And if it's topics, then it's like, well, we covered some of the topics today. We'll cover other ones other times. So feel free to add stuff under here, topics. Um, You'll also see there's 1 hash and 2 hash. That just means these are different size headers. And when you add more marks, they get smaller, down to about 4 or 5. Um, uh, good observation, Monty. However, local stuff has gotten so easy to use that it's like really easy to install. So I think it's okay to start with local. Because if you start with cloud stuff, you'll never do the local ones, and the local ones they're super useful and super easy to install nowadays. So now that I've talked about a couple different things away from what Daniel was saying, what I was going to do, what I did was kind of copied this item onto its own section here. These headers, if you make headers, they kind of make sections, kind of. I was going to write down Danielle's questions because they're awesome. So one of them was, will this, for example, local LLM or image generator even work on my computer? And Danielle, I'm not sure that I feel like you had two things and I'm only remembering one. Will it bog it down? Maybe, yeah.
I think I was asking like just the terminology to understand like what
Yeah, okay.
words to use even to describe what we're doing, and
Yep.
then how to um if I even have the capacity with my current Mac. I mean, I think I got it during the pandemic or something. I don't, so it's a couple of years old, a few years old. I don't think it has the M1 chip. Is that
You
cool?
don't need an M1 anymore.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. So one of the things that we'll learn together is, how far, how how wimpy do we have to make the AIs before they run on most people's machines? Um, the AI things I'm thinking of run on not they should. I'm a little bit handicapped. I've got a pretty nice M1. It's actually an early M1, so I bought it, a year or two ago, but it is an M1. But the stuff that I'm interested in running runs on pretty basic machines, I think. So, and then if that's not true, then we can kind of step down. Um, um, so since you mentioned terminology first, let's do that game a little bit, is maybe a way to think of it. Do we know what this means? What does that mean? We could get bogged down here just talking about language. So I want to make sure we don't do that because it's useful and probably actually super important. Um, but maybe you know me, or maybe you don't. I can get super bogged down in minute little details of things and why it matters. And the terminology stuff will also get me going into like random computer history things that it's super interesting at some point, but anyway, so what's a model? Um, so let's see how we're going to do this. So we're using, this is, I also skip around a bit, at least a lot of bit. Um, don't worry about it too much, I guess. I'm typing in something called Markdown. So actually, let's write down Markdown. That's a good one. And maybe you can see on my screen, I write little characters here and it turns into formatting over here. So these two, these characters turn into headers. And if I put a dash and a space, it turns into a bullet. So Markdown is a simple, plain text-based way to write for computers. Um, Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Markdown is actually kind of more important than you think. Is a bold statement I'm going to make. If you know, and Markdown is super easy to learn. There's like five things that you need, and then like 80% of Markdown. Um, uh, Markdown ends up getting used in lots of different odd places without you necessarily realizing it. But once you know Markdown and you try it someplace and it's like, oh, it works. For instance, ChatGPT, when you're asking it stuff, the way it does bold and the way it does numbers and all that, it's all Markdown. And you can type Markdown at it and give it a little bit of extra hint, what the structure of something you're saying is. And you can also export, like it would be really nice if when I exported this, that it would keep the fact that these are numbers and it's got bold and stuff like that. So I can export that um, in HTML maybe, or I can take a picture of it. But if you do it in Markdown, then you've got the formatting and you can repurpose the Markdown in lots of different ways, that text in lots of different ways. So Markdown is an important thing. By the way, maybe I didn't say this. Maybe I will go back over this transcript and copy paste it in. So one of my assertions or beliefs or something like that is that you need to have basic computer stuff, and then it helps you a lot in the AI stuff. And then now I've distracted myself a bit from what I wanted to say.
I thought, were you going to talk about what a model is, or
Mhm.
was it Markdown?
Yeah, so this is P getting distracted. Um, because I'm typing in Markdown, I was going to type model, but then I was like, oh, Pete, you uttered a glossary word. Let's write it. Let's do that. Okay, model. Um, uh, a model is the brain for a generative AI. I don't know where to write this or how to write this, but I put brain in quotes, scare quotes. AIs don't have brains and they're not going to think anytime soon, kind of. So watch when we use a word that is usually for an animal or even a human, it doesn't mean that it's actually a brain or that it actually
I,
thinks
I
or it's
will
actually
say though
thinking.
that Peter, I was chatting with Pi today, Pi AI, about a really complicated topic, and it's amazing how they can make it seem like it's simulated thinking because it's able to handle extremely complicated context and answer as if it's reasoning. But of course, we know it's probably has extremely limited reasoning capabilities, but they're able to simulate reasoning in a conversational way
Yep.
really well.
Um, I agree. Uh, so let's talk about that a little bit, um, because it's actually kind of important. There's a really good article by the Wolfram Alpha guy. I guess Wolfram, Stephen Wolfram. Um, so this got written really early, in February. After February 2023. So that's like 4 or 5 months after, 3 months, 2 months, 2 months after ChatGPT came out, and he had access, prior access to it. So it wasn't, uh, he had some background, it wasn't just using it for 2 months. Uh, Wolfram, Stephen Wolfram is a really smart brainiac guy who kind of invented his own branch of mathematics and also runs. Um,
Yeah, but Peter, in a nutshell, because you've covered this before on past set
yep.
meetings, in a nutshell, could you just say what you want to say about
Thanks, RJ.
models? Yeah,
Yes. Uh,
and pi and how it's smart and how it's able to be smart. I mean,
yep. So the reason I bring this up, this is worth trying to get to read through, I think. It's somebody who's a brainiac and really knows actually how it works, explaining it in, reasonably understandable way. It's something you kind of dig a little bit in, you read a few sentences and you go, okay, I'm done for tonight. But in here, Wolfram says all it's doing is, guessing the next word, basically. So we have this kind of received wisdom of the early days when we were using ChatGPT, and especially ChatGPT 3.5. I don't think this talks about 4 now that I think about it. I think it talks about 3 or 3.5. It's just predicting the next word is the way that the smart people would say it, right? And it's like, okay, well, I guess it's not thinking at all. So when they got to GPT-4 or Pi, um, a thing that I haven't seen written down yet is that it is actually reasoning a little bit. It's doing a little bit of thinking about, what does Pete mean, or what does RJ mean by that? And how can I make a plan to cover the things that need to get covered, so that RJ or Pete gets what he wants out of the conversation. It's doing that kind of planning and thinking. I haven't seen that written down anywhere, so I'm kind of guessing.
Yeah,
Um,
there have been studies about that, the so-called emergent capabilities that the larger
yeah,
scaled up models have. Yeah.
uh, let's see.
But there's also other things going on nowadays. There's dialogue management systems that are keeping track of the topics and summarizing it. So it's doing
Yep,
real-time temporary learning um, about what was discussed. And so it's really good at whoever is designing the dialogue management systems, I think in particular, is making the model seem to be um, reasoning very well. Perhaps I don't know, because that stuff is not documented. It's all top secret,
yep.
trade secret stuff. So
My guess, my guess for GPT-4 at least is it's using something we kind of know that it's using something called a mixture of experts. So uh, so GPT-4 is really kind of like 8 or 16 GPT 3.5s stuck together to work to get stuff done. And I think I haven't read this again, so I'm guessing, but I think what happens is a few of those are dedicated to do conversation management essentially or planning. And it's essentially doing some reasoning about how to proceed, what context the questions are in. So when I see GPT-4 thinking, it's kind of doing a fairly good job of understanding what I'm trying to do when I'm writing a program or something like that, and you know uh, uh, getting a sense of what I'm trying to do and then thinking ahead kind of and saying, this is the way that I think Pete wants to go with it. Um, even though it's just, there's no way that's just guessing the next token. So,
And also,
um,
they have a lot of um, prompt structure built in, giving the AI, the LLM, rules about how to handle the conversation, what to talk about next, and what to not talk about, and all those
yeah,
kinds of things.
yeah. Um, so, so back to what a model is. A model is just kind of the brain for the AI, and um, so you see that different platforms like Pi or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, um, they have different brains in them. And then the open source ones are set up so you actually swap in different brains. So you get the framework and then you get the model. And let me do a real quick, like, this isn't to show how it works. It's just to show the fact that there's different brains. Um, uh, so in an open source system, so let's go back to in the big commercial systems like Claude, I guess even ChatGPT. What I'm trying to say is you don't swap the brains much for the commercial systems because they just use the best one. So Claude has the best one. It's a different brain than Gemini or OpenAI, but they pretty much want to use their best one. Um, uh, OpenAI does let you choose two different brains, right? The little bit less smart brain that's a lot faster, and it's probably cheaper for them to run, frankly, too. Um, and then their best one, which is much smarter and slower, and is time limited because they ran out of GPU capacity and stuff like that. So you can even on ChatGPT, you can switch between two different brains. On the open source things, people are making different brains all the time, and you get a lot closer to the research inside OpenAI or inside Google or inside Facebook or Anthropic. People are doing research, and you know that they have lots of different brains, and they're trying the best ones, and they're trying to hybridize them, and The whole mixture of experts thing is somebody saying, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll just put a whole bunch of GPT 3.5s together, and maybe that will work, instead of trying to make one that was just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it worked really well. Mixture of experts works really well. So this is a drawing, local drawing thing called Draw Things, image generator. And if you go here, these are all different quote unquote brains, different models that that it'll use. And this whole list, this is just kind of what the author of this this system, I think this is actually open source. Um, this is just the one that he can kind of keep up with. For every one of these, there's probably like 10 variants of it. So there's just like a plethora of models. And so that's why somebody like Pate says, huh, I think I'm going to go shopping over in Hugging Face. Let me sort through, you know, a couple thousand different models for the one that I need. So how are we doing, Danielle? Does that help or not help or get too distracted? What's the next word that we don't know?
No, it's so far so good.
Um, so a model is just a generic name. If you're very careful not to think of it as an actual brain, but if you think of it as like another way of the brain or the engine.
Would it be similar to like an algorithm?
That is a darn good question, Claire. I really like that. And my quick answer is no, but
Okay.
I, it's
Poor
like
Claire.
comparing an algorithm is like such a small piece that it's an algorithm is like a nail in a house or something like that, and a model is like whether you've decided to use steel framing or wood framing or something like that.
Got it.
It's even more than that. Actually, using this car metaphor, a model is like an engine that you put in a car. An algorithm is like one little piece, you know, how the rocker thing, you know, moves the valves or something like that. Neural network, that's another good one. So if we have models, then you start talking about a lot of other things. Like there's a phrase called foundation model, and then there's fine tuning, and I get lost pretty quickly. But I know a foundation model is a good kind of another chunk of thing to think about. The foundation model is that main brain, ChatGPT 3.5 or 4, or SDXL, which stands for Stable Diffusion Extra Large. And a foundation model is like the big base one that takes millions of dollars and you know, thousands of GPU hours to get all set up together. And then so that's a foundation model. Maybe it's like the basic model of the engine. So then people do different like hacks on top of the engine, and that's fine tuning and stuff like that. Another thing, would it be fair? Thanks for taking notes, whoever this is. And would it be fair to make a token? Yeah, actually, this is a good definition of token. There's a lot more to describe about why we use tokens instead of something else, but a token is a chunk of a word, more or less. You can kind of see, this is really small, I apologize. But you can see as I type here, actually, let's do that. What is a foundation model?
I have a question about tokens
Basis
in a minute when you're ready.
of a founder. or okay. Um, let me do this quick explanation, and I failed to do what I wanted to with this because each of these turned into a word basically, or each these are I think these are tokens down here, and for this for these words they're a whole token. I was especially trying to get it to break foundation and founder into the token for found, and but anyway. Um, uh, Danielle, why don't you ask your question and I'll try to get.
Okay, so is a token like its value, is it different on different platforms?
Yes, the short
Okay.
answer is yes.
Okay.
The slightly longer answer is you don't have to worry about it.
Well, what if I, well,
It gets to the answer kind of gets the answer to what is a token gets longer and longer and longer to the point where you're like, oh, holy crap, it's just got really, really complicated. This is a fun, super fun toy. So yes, um, in a big maybe a car engine. Let's keep going with the car engine. If GPT 3.5 is the car engine, then the tokenizer is like the air input and the air filter or something like that. It's bringing in something that's really important to the operation of the machine. And different different engine manufacturers will have different air filter things, and you'll have to get the right air filter for your engine and all that kind of stuff. Um, you can, yeah, I don't know. I was going to try to stretch a little bit more. So it's actually a whole different, it's a whole separate subsystem that gets designed, and sometimes you do swap them in and out. Like if you were hot riding your car, you would swap in a different kind of air input thing. You can swap the tokenizers, and I don't know if that's really true because the model itself, the basic model will have been set up to work with the particular tokens. So you probably wouldn't use a Google tokenizer with an OpenAI model. That's probably true. But I think some of the open source models, you can maybe choose different tokenizers that are compatible with each other or something like that. Anyway, this is such a fun toy, and I never hear people talking about it, but um, this is actually the visible engine version of OpenAI's tokenizer. So I can say, I can type whatever I want here, and down at the bottom, it turns it into tokens. I am um, so like frustrated that founder and foundational are both like whole tokens. What are some good compound words? Uh, you know that thing where like if you're trying to think of something, you just can't. So let's cheat. Let's do this. Um,
Do you want a long word like anti-disestablishmentarianism?
I finally got some joy here with tokenized. A
Cool.
long word, it's a good guess, Clara. A long word is actually probably less likely to, if it's a long and kind of unique word, then it's probably a whole token. Um, but um, but this is a good example here. Tokenized, it took it apart into token and ized. Tokens, interestingly enough, is one token. Um, and I wonder what happens if I type just token or toke. So that's really interesting. Toke is actually T-O and K-E. I don't know much of the theory behind why. I mean, I don't know why. What the let's ask ChatGPT. Um, I actually want a specific thing because I know what tokens, what you do with tokens, but I'm looking for why split some words. Um, let's let this cook for a while and see where it gets to. And I'll use a simpler explanation. So um, what tokens end up getting used for is um, imagine training. Training is the wrong word. Imagine like baking. Baking is actually a much better word for making a large foundation model. Um, what you do is you like let billions of words cut up into tokens. So billions of tokens wash over it kind of, and it starts to see the relationship between tokens that are really close together and tokens that are a little bit farther apart. And it gets, for me, it's kind of the flavor of, um, how different sets of tokens in groups come together to form, a thing that makes the human happy, basically. So GPT 3.5, it's just trying to make the human happy, and you type some text at it. It turns the tokenizer turns that into tokens, and then you can kind of imagine the tokens in that order kind of float over into around the model, and it goes, oh, I think I know what comes after this. So it just feels good to make more tokens. And it's for a human, like saying that it's feeling it or it tastes right or smells right or something like that, it kind of just looks right. So it's not actually thinking about it, the earlier models. It's just kind to try to arrange more tokens that look harmonious together to, harmonious in the way that kind of matches all the training material that kind of got washed through it. So I don't know exactly why, but I um, I recognize BERT or GPT. Um, so so here you go. The goal for BERT and GPT was to balance the vocabulary size and the ability to handle unsaid words. If you had a token for every single word, you would end up with 50,000 tokens or 100,000 tokens or something like that. But if you can kind of like chop them up a little bit, and it doesn't even matter too much exactly how you chop them up. If you chop them up a little bit, I don't know how many total tokens there are, but there's not that many. There's 16,000 or something like that, rather than 50,000, or there's 8,000 or something. So then the tokens literally get turned into a number. So right now I left this the way it was, and it says text, but you can turn this into the numbers. So here's the internal thinking of ChatGPT. It only knows these numbers. um, and it knows that, certain strings of these numbers go well together, and certain strings of these numbers, taste bad when you put them together. So let's not do that. So that's how these models work. And that's why you use tokens. And all of that explanation is kind of why you don't need to know very much about tokens to use it.
And
Uh,
by the way, if I could just jump in here, what the model is going to be doing is it's going to be doing matrix algebra, which is why you need a GPU, because GPUs are really good at doing matrix algebra very fast. And that's basically how it's going to be doing its thinking in a sense.
the tasting is the way I would say it, or the smell of it, or the feel of it. The matrix algebra, it's not doing thinking as much as what I think of as tasting or smelling or feeling. It helps it the matrix the calculations kind of match the flavor of this and the flavor of that. Are we getting close? So rather than well, we won't get into how humans think, but
Yeah, yeah,
um,
basically it's predicting, I should take back what I sort of said. What it's doing is it's predicting what it is that you want in a sense based on how it's been trained. So it's been trained to respond in a certain way. And if you give it an input, then it will look at all of the information that it was trained on in the pre-training, and also maybe some fine-tuning training that told it to train it to respond a certain way.
to
Then,
emphasize different things. Yeah.
well, yeah, basically to always seem very helpful and things like that. That's the kind of response that they usually want because that will sell better. But yeah, basically that's what it's doing. It's doing a typical machine learning um, prediction task.
Another thing to put in here is it RHLF? I haven't memorized this one. RLHF. Um, and that training to be RLHF. That training to be a good conversationalist. It's really tempting to say that learning and training is like a dog or like a person or something like that. It's kind of not. But anyway, if the bot were a dog, what it does is it learns to predict. Predict is another word that it's not really doing. It feels right to have, or it smells good or it tastes good to have these tokens come after those tokens. That's what it's thinking. It just feels good, or feels right. It doesn't even feel good. It just feels right. So
And if I could just put in there, that RLHF is also what's making it try to sound very confident
yeah,
and trying to give you what you want and being very adaptive to try to give you what you want to hear by it taking what you said and trying to mix together a solution that seems like, oh, you want that then, and yes, you're right, you should want that.
yes, that conversationalism comes from the before it has that reinforcement learning. um, it's it says it says to itself, or it thinks, or it feels like this is the right stuff to that goes, these are the tokens that the human put, these are the tokens that feel right to give back to it. And then if it were a dog, you'd hit it on the nose with a paper. It's like, no, that's stupid. I'm scared by what you said. I don't like that, or it's a bad answer. So you whack it on the nose with a paper, and then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Let me adjust the way that I complete the tokens. And so they've
and,
done a lot of that and trained it out of giving you unfriendly answers and trained it into giving you friendly answers.
Hey, Pete, I have a
Yes.
question. So, since it's like all like math and the reason why it does what it does, is that why like if you say if you're wanting to change like a prompt, like you're generating an image and you say, no, don't put that in it anymore, and then it puts more of that in it think because it is it just because you said that word again, it just doesn't it doesn't why does it not understand the word no? Why does why does like
So ChatGPT, right? So
right.
so maybe to Danielle and I are image generation experts, but we live on the we live across the tracks from each other or something. Um, across the freeway. Freeways cut right through cities and break. So in Midjourney, you know, I'll say something like, let's do a free association thing. So I'll just say like a random word like coordination, and then you actually say no, woman, girl, boy, man, and with version 5, I had to add this like all the time to my random stuff because as we know, if you type any random word into an image generator, it's going to give you back attractive young women, which is great, but not what I was looking for. So this is a place where this command actually tells it to stay away from generating these things. And it'll try pretty hard to do it, or it will succeed most of the time to do it. It won't succeed all the time. But if you go over to ChatGPT and say things like, what would you predict is a good simple prompt, Danielle?
No beard.
And what's the subject to
Well,
generate?
like say a man without facial hair. And then it'll just keep on putting facial hair on the man. Like,
Yeah, some models can handle that, and it's called negative prompt. They have a
right.
special box called a negative prompt,
And
like you just
Like-
know,
that's what
apparently.
yeah, that's what
Hugging
Midjourney
face.
did.
Like on Hugging Face. If you put in put that
Hugging Face is just a place where it's a
See?
warehouse where
Look at that. Look at that.
I like how Danielle can just like know exactly that that's something that's not going to work. Let me show you the draw things. So this is Stable Diffusion. The program is called Draw Things. It's free. It's awesome. It's a little bit hard to use,
By the
but
way,
no harder than
I would have been extremely angry if that man had no facial
I
hair right
know,
now.
right?
I would have been so
It's
mad.
like, dude, what's up with that? You know, Pete does it and it works. Um, I'm glad it broke for me too. So here's the negative, like literally enter the negative prompt. So Stable Diffusion works like Midjourney. Let's get a little bit deeper here. And as you know, probably Danielle, this actually isn't what Dolly got asked to draw. Dolly got asked to draw this. So I was frankly I was hoping that this wouldn't appear here, but it did. So we know it's not ChatGPT's fault. ChatGPT was like, okay, Pete asked for not a beard. I'll make it not a beard. I get it. So this is Dolly. Uh, you know, it's the funny thing is it would be tempting to call this a bug, but I don't know. So an image generator works kind of the same way that I've been talking about LLMs working, right? Except for its training material. And training is not, again, the right word, really. It's really like look at all this stuff and do a bunch of math with it and get the feeling of how something goes with something else. So for image generators, that feeling is when I see certain words, I feel like I feel in an image is what it does. Um, and then the way the diffusion models work is even more crazy because it's actually like, let me look at a picture of white noise like static on a TV screen, and I'm going to make it just a little bit better, closer to feeling good. So my guess, so Dolly is just is poorly, I don't know if poorly trained is the right thing, right? Um, Dolly looks at all of this stuff. It's not looking unlike Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, where you can just say, here's a negative prompt. Dolly doesn't have that negative prompt. So it's looking at all of these words together. And so I think the things that, well, actually, I've experienced this. If you say man, it's really hard to think of anything that doesn't have a beard because I don't know. Because I don't know. It's just the way that the corpus is set up, right? Kind of like if you put in teenager, you're going to get a girl. You're never going to get a boy, right? Unless you like overload the prompt with boys. So right there, just this word fights pretty heavily with this. Right there, you've confused a whole bunch. And then I don't know about friendly, but warm smile. People with smiles probably have beards. Or it like tempts it to go towards beard. Casual means beard. Approachable means beard. Hair is like, oh my God, there's hair going on someplace. Let's make sure there's hair on the face. Um, Styled. All of this stuff is helping it think of beards. Is kind of the answer. So the trick is to take the prompt that you gave to, I know Danielle's got a whole fancy way of doing this herself. So it's gonna be interesting trying me to teach the master how to do her job. I'm probably gonna fail.
Not quite. No, this has been a pain in
So
the.
the thing to do is to go not to try working with this at all, because this isn't the source of the problem. The source of the problem is this prompt. So if you give it this prompt, ChatGPT is much less concerned about hacking a good prompt if you give it a prompt that it already generated. So I don't know exactly how I would hack this to I actually, I guess now I know that I'm not a Dolly expert. I know how to hack this for an LLM, but not for Dolly.
I've tried saying
But
things like cleanly shaven, or
um,
Monty's saying something like military. What?
uh, so the thing I don't know here is how Dolly interacts with uh, language. I don't know how. Make sure that man does not have a bear. Okay, make sure no bears. Um, uh, let's just
Maybe saying something at
do
the end
this.
saying, if you say something at the end saying, do you understand that he is not supposed to have any facial hair? Like saying, asking it that question sometimes I'll do things like that at the end of my prompt and ask it, do you I don't know. It's something I do,
The thing
okay?
to yeah, no, that makes sense.
No, it
The
doesn't.
thing the thing to project is what it's going to do with that information, right? It probably actually confuses it more than it helps. So
Probably,
it's
and me too.
the thing to remember is that it's not thinking. LOL, this is so funny.
Now he looks worse. He looks like he's hungry.
So so my diagnosis of what probably happened here, and it'll be interesting to see when we click this and see what happened. Look how many times I put beard in here. Dolly doesn't really think, and it doesn't understand, clearly it doesn't understand language very well. Um, uh, but I think probably I made it worse just by, and kind of to your method, Danielle, asking it if it knows how badly it's screwing up. You know, it doesn't actually affect it at all. All it does is it breaks the words into tokens. It looks at the tokens and say, these tokens look like this picture. So there you go.
What about the
Um,
times when we ask it to, when it's acting all janky and we say, okay, take a few deep breaths and then say, and let me know when you're ready to start again. When you ask it to do that kind of stuff, though,
does that work for Dolly or
it
just
does. It does.
um,
Sometimes it does. And then, I've noticed it does. If you say, okay,
yeah.
take a few deep breaths and let me know when you're ready to start again, and then it does it again, and it will help it make it get back on track.
And do you do separate prompts to get that, or
With the same, if you're working on the same prompt,
but just with ChatGPT, do you ever in that process, would you have gone out to this prompt or just yours? Just keep
or
going
just a
right.
prompt in general that I'm having trying to make it change
But
what it's doing.
you keep talking about ChatGPT. You probably don't copy paste. You probably don't copy paste this back into the conversation,
Yeah,
right?
well, I have absolutely. I've absolutely taken like prompts like that to reuse
Yeah.
them. But okay, I'm gonna
Can
stop
I ask a
interrupting you now.
question?
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
please.
How about the approach where you tell ChatGPT what you want? I'm asking the question, how about the approach where you tell ChatGPT what you want in terms of how the picture should look, and you ask it to write the prompt for the image generation?
That's more or less what we did here. So, you know, I asked
What
it,
I'm saying is you tell it, write a prompt that will generate
yeah.
that picture and show me the prompt.
Yeah, that we did that.
No, go to the ChatGPT side and say, write me a prompt that will generate an image of a man without any facial hair. And then write me the prompt. Do not create the
Yeah,
image.
yeah. Let me grab this. Oh, and
You
then
write
I lost it again.
Tell it to
Um,
rewrite this prompt so it does not create the image created does not create any facial hair.
we've I'm gonna do that here actually, if that's okay.
Because
Um,
I
oh,
tried
you are in
show me
ChatGPT.
show me a man with a perfectly smooth face, and it showed me a beardless man.
yeah, there you go.
But asking
Um,
it to show a man with alopecia still gave a beard. No hair on his head, but a beard.
Perfectly smooth face seemed to work.
yeah,
Write me a prompt that will generate an image. Hold on, I'm still not on mute. I'm talking.
that's okay. I'm gonna try another window. Wow, I got two. I don't know why
I'm
I
so
got two. That's
proud.
really
What did you say?
I I'm sorry I didn't I'm not sure who said that, but
It
I
was
said
Danielle.
perfectly
Sorry.
smooth face. Yeah, it works.
the Paul. Yeah.
Look at you, Paul.
And yeah, that's cool. Very good, Paul. Thanks. Right dolly prompt to you know, uh I guess kind of in my theory is saying no beard isn't as good as saying clean shaven, because that beard word is going to, like, it's kind of only, it's going on all the words. It's not really, doesn't really understand the words that much. Um, so uh, so you're right, Danielle. This tried a lot harder. It didn't say beard. It said clean shaven. Absence of facial hair. So this one probably, I'm going to predict it will probably work
I
80%.
got one. I did that. What RJ was saying too. I see what you do. This is how, when we did that, when we did that thing, you and I, Pete, when we did
Mhm.
our prompting, teaching, whatever stuff. So how I go over to ChatGPT and have ChatGPT help me write the prompt, and then I take that prompt over to the DALL-E side. Well, that's what I just did. And if I could show you, like, it's not gonna show. Hold on, let me turn off my background. But I just created an image of a dude with no facial hair by asking it to create an image. I said, make me an image, write me a prompt for a man that has no. I'll just post it. I'll post it and I'll show you that
Cool.
way. It's not.
Thanks. Um, I I think it's good enough. It sounds like you actually go over to Dolly over here. I think it's good enough to just say create the image, and stay in ChatGPT. But it worked for me too. I got a clean shaven guy.
Well, I just bring it over there because it creates two images that way.
Aha, a hack. I like it. Um, so another thing about this this doing it in 2 steps like this is you can inspect this prompt and go, yeah, this is probably going to be a clean shaven guy, as opposed to if it just said no beard here, you might go, let's try to write that a little bit. Let's tweak that before I make the image.
I think one reason it's good to do it this way is because perhaps, I'm just guessing, but perhaps the model was fine-tuned so that it would create more desired output results.
Yeah,
So and that's why I've heard that other people use that a lot, and it's supposed to work good.
yeah. Um, so the takeaway here is I guess a couple takeaways. One of them is what RJ just said. This is a good process to get it a prompt and then make the image. Another thing is that it doesn't understand, DALL-E doesn't understand language very well. It just is looking at words. So um, that no beard is much more confusing to DALL-E than clean shaven, probably.
Well, that's not good English, is it? I mean, wouldn't you want to say without a beard instead of with and then no? How do those work?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. This would be, I don't know. This would be perfectly good English, I think. This would be really clear to a person, man with no beard. You're right that a man without a beard sounds better. Like somebody who didn't know English. That's one of the things I've learned when you're learning a language or something that, or you can't hear somebody very well. Um, the difference between a very short word like no is a big deal. It means either absence of or presence of, and if you miss that, um, so without might be better.
Yeah, I'll try it on ChatGPT and see if it works. Man without a beard.
I think the real trick is to not even say beard. So saying clean shaven is better probably than without a beard.
Right.
Absence of facial hair seems to work too. Okay. Where should we go next?
Well, one thing we left out, we didn't talk about temperature. And if you can set the temperature, that's going to change the result. And what is that doing? Well, when the model's doing its predicting of what it thinks you want based on what it learned during its training mode, it will give the best statistical answer if the temperature is set to 0. But if you wanted to be more creative, they enabled the model to not give the most best answer, statistically speaking, and instead give a less statistically best answer, which may be more creative. So that's why setting the model temperature is important to know about. And if you're using Bing Chat, Copilot, they have 3 button settings that you can use that approximate changing the temperature. One is more precise, which is probably closer to 0 temperature. And then there's a middle setting and a more creative setting. And if you're just writing some text and you want a creative, fiction or something like that, then you can let it be creative. But if you want something accurate, then it's better to use the more accurate setting or 0 in ChatGPT, or if you have the ability to do that with your account that you have.
Um, uh, well explained, RJ, thanks. I have a chemist friend who's really annoyed by the way that we so I wonder what's I turned off an ad blocker. I wonder what's blocking what I was going to do was, and I'll just go over to Gemini.
Somebody was asking, Julia's asking if you could show the temperature setting in ChatGPT.
I actually don't. Is there a temperature setting in ChatGPT?
I thought there was, I don't have an account, but I thought that there was
feel
a
like-
place where you can set, oh, you know what it is? It's in the temperature setting is in the playground, I think.
I don't know if that answers Julia's question, but
Well, if you
you know,
could go to
actually,
the playground, the ChatGPT OpenAI playground,
yeah.
that's where you'll see the temperature setting, I think. Or if you go to other playgrounds by other companies, models, they have temperature settings.
Yeah, let me show a different thing. In the last session, maybe 2 sessions ago, we talked. Somebody had the question, how important is it to use GPT-4 instead of GPT 3.5? And I had a potentially surprising answer, which is I think it's really important. Um, 3.5 is good for like 80% of the things, and then for 20% of things, you need the extra intelligence, quote unquote intelligence that GPT-4 has. So what I was saying is that if you don't want to spend 20 bucks a month for ChatGPT Plus so that you can use GPT-4, and maybe you don't like Copilot or whatever, it's not that hard to use an alternative interface that lets you buy processing wholesale from OpenAI rather than the retail $20 a month thing. I fear that I didn't explain that very well, but let me give you an example. So there's a thing that I set up a while ago that is still, I was going to say it's still running, but I swear it worked last time. It worked a week ago. It's not working right now. Let's not go there. Let me show it in a completely different way. This is an image generator, and this is kind of the same thing. Here it's called CFG configuration, which actually doesn't mean anything, I think. But the user, the developer of this call it text guidance, how literally the text input should be taken. So it's just a setting that some models will expose for you. And now I wish this was working. I wonder if I did it again. It's closer or farther away from a standard answer is kind of a way to think about it. Another way to think about it is how creative to be. And I was talking about my chemistry friend. And let me see if I can find a good picture. This is kind of, this is getting close. I'm not quite looking up the right thing, but this is close. Maybe you saw this in school, maybe you didn't. But this little box here has got a high temperature side and a low temperature side. This is a really bad, what you're supposed to notice is these arrows are short here and they're long here. The arrows mean kind of how fast it's going. And this is a very, very, very blown up picture of like a gas or like steam or water vapor or something like that. So a high temperature means that these molecules are bouncing around a lot, super fast. And a low temperature means they're going really, really slow. This diagram doesn't do that idea justice at all, but this meaning, high temperature and low temperature, uh, computer scientists thinking of diagrams like this stole the name temperature, and they said, okay, high temperature is going to be more random, and low temperature is going to be more straight, more sane. So that's where it's from, and that's why my chemistry friend gets annoyed, because when you use it for a computer, it doesn't mean anything the same kind of. Even though the end result is the same, it's a metaphor, not a good thing. So I think on the notes we've got temperature. How close? Oh, so what I wrote is how close or far away from a normal answer to give sort of creative to be with an answer. Now that I think about it, Midjourney has one of its settings is chaos, and I think that's probably pretty close to the same thing. They just used a different name for it. Julia, did you get what you wanted from the temperature settings question?
I have to play with the playground, I think. But yes, like I understand it. So thank you. And thanks, Arjun.
Um, in normal use on ChatGPT, you don't use temperature at all because they set it perfectly. Kind of is the thing. Ah, there you go. Thanks,
When
Monty.
would you use the temperature settings then? Like why would you use them?
You know, it's a good question. I have a funny way to answer it. I think it's a funny way to answer it. If you think of, uh, let's look at the Midjourney documentation. So maybe one of the things that we've learned is that idea, the temperature idea, is called different things in different places, and temperature is probably one of the less good names for it. So more creative or less creative is a good way to say it. Uh, draw things was text guidance. How literally should the input be taken? So Midjourney has a similar thing called chaos. And chaos is kind of a good name for it, although it's a very dramatic one. High chaos values produce more unusual and unexpected results in compositions. Lower chaos has more reliable, repeatable results. So if you were asking a bot to write a poem, you might set the chaos or the temperature or the creativity high. If you were asking it to write a resume, a cover letter, you would probably set it really low. With ChatGPT, especially GPT-4, you can give it that kind of guidance without a setting. You can say, write this very playfully, or write it very seriously, or use bigger words, use smaller words. Write it for a 12-year-old or write it for a PhD student. That's probably a better way to guide ChatGPT than just a setting. But if you think about, let me show you so if I go over to Midjourney and talk about chaos, I've been super enchanted recently with a fairly high chaos setting. and also a high stylized setting, which I don't know how to explain very well. But chaos for Midjourney goes from 0 to 100. And I've been doing just a ton of stuff with chaos set to 60. And the reason I do that, this was that experiment we tried earlier, just the word coordination, which means it's going to free associate and generate all kinds of weird stuff. But I said, don't make a woman, girl, boy, man. So I've got 4 of those. None of them have people even. It's really good. Where I was getting to was, oh no, I was doing a language experiment at the same time. So let me scroll down to English. Uh, Sorry, I wasn't thinking that. So this is the prompt here, and I did this prompt with ChatGPT. So it's close up of a dewdrop teeming with microscopic life, yada yada. So if I had the chaos for this set to 0, it would be pretty close to this description. If I have the chaos set to 60, it gets kind of crazy and does all kinds of random stuff. And if I'm looking for random stuff, this one, city skyline at dusk, silhouettes of skyscrapers. And again, this is high chaos. This one isn't even a city skyline. But I was in a playful and creative mode, so this is actually a great image, even though it's not what I asked it for. And a lot of that is due to the chaos is set really high. So it's generating stuff that might be close, might not be close. Coral reef, I'm kind of surprised it didn't get very creative with these coral reefs. But look at this coral reef. This is, this is pretty far away from the description I gave it. Not that far away, but uh, so so I'm really happy with, those are mountains, forests. Let's try again another one. So this is an interesting one. So this is a desert, Milky Way. In the foreground, the silhouette of a lone cactus stands. With the chaos cranked up high, in this particular image, there is a cactus in the foreground, but this statue thing takes over a lot of the role of the silhouette of a cactus. And it's not a cactus, dude. But that's awesome, right? So this one is more straight. This one is this one too. There's a little cactus here, but then this is an amazing image, right? This is awesome. This is what I wanted, even if that's not what I asked for. So there you go. Let me stop this share and we'll maybe just chat a little bit. Uh, I'm interested in kind of like feedback, how this went, how to make it better, and what people think of my idea of kind of starting to set up a little bit more of a structured curriculum, so you can tell where Pete is on his temperature scale. Pete, you're not doing 101, you're doing 401, and I don't know what's going on. At least if we had a little map for that, that would maybe help. And then the thing I'm really excited about, because we're named 101, is to make sure people can start checking off, especially the lower ones, all the 101 ones, and work towards the ones that they want to check off, and 201 and 301 and 401. And doing that in calls, actually, showing people how you do an install, or how what the settings are for a thing. What do we think about that? Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks. Let me maybe to kind of close it out. Because part of it is installing stuff. Uh, I'm not going to do something useful here necessarily, but I'm going to show you some of the infrastructure I'm thinking of using. So on a computer, here it is here. On modern computers, especially if you've got a fairly fancy M1 chip like I do, on modern computers, even ones that aren't super fancy, you can run a virtual computer. And so this is a really nice virtual computer system called Virtual Buddy in this case. And it runs a Mac inside my Mac. So this is a completely different Mac running on my Mac. So my theory is this one is a little bit set up, so it has some stuff installed. And this is a clone of a computer from a virtual computer from months ago, so I don't actually remember exactly what I was trying to do. But Chap, I wonder if this will work. Chap, I know this is really small. And that's not what I'm trying to show. What I'm trying to show is that I can go someplace and have a computer that probably doesn't have, I can't find anything because it's not set up like my computer. Not now. I guess what I was trying to do, I was trying to get to Obsidian, for instance, not because we necessarily need to go to Obsidian right now. On a virtual computer, I'll be able to, thanks, Danielle. On a virtual computer, it can be set up like, like a new computer. I didn't even have it set up so that it would allow downloads for this. And then we can go through the process. Instead of running this on Pete's computer, let me make this bigger so that it's a full size. I think you can still see, you see writing is telepathy and the Obsidian stuff. So this is not my real computer anymore. It's a computer running on my computer. And I can do things like there's no Obsidian down here because I've never installed it. So I can show you how to install something. And then folks at home will be able to do that on their computer. I will do things like, nobody tells you this, but when you install stuff on a computer, you've got this virtual disk. It's confusing that this is a virtual disk on a virtual computer, but anyway, on your computer, nobody tells you this, but you kind of want to like eject this, it's called. You want to unload this virtual disk. So you can go over here and find this. A better way is to right click on this and say eject. Okay, so now we've got a brand new, I'm gonna have to learn how to use a standard Mac again because I have like a shortcut. Here it is here, applications. Another trick I use is to drag the applications thing right there so I can always find it. So anyway, we'll install different stuff. We'll install things like Obsidian. We'll run it for the very first time rather than seeing it, all set up like Pete has it. So I'm super excited about that. I can do that for Windows too. And so we'll have both Windows and Mac installs on shared screen.
And it's called shared screen. What is it called?
It's called virtualization. Now let me get back to my computer. So the cool thing is, let me not do that. It's gonna be interesting trying to like get everything back out of this. Anyway, virtualization.
Is that a generic term or is that the name of the site that you were on?
The site that I was on, it's actually not a site. It's an app, and it was called Virtual Buddy.
So Does it run on your machine or does it run in the cloud, you said? I can't remember which.
It runs on, it's a very good question. This is actually an awesome question. The ones, maybe to back up just a half step or so, I'll be able to demonstrate installs on a fresh computer because it's a fresh computer. You can have a virtual computer like that either on your computer or in the cloud. And often you want it in the cloud because your computer's only got so much space. And if you have a whole nother computer inside of it, then it's like that's taking up a lot of space. So that one, Virtual Buddy, is on my
Yeah.
computer.
It is on your computer. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I was wondering if we would get to the Windows version of that. So actually, so Virtual Buddy is a free one. Parallels is the standard one, and it's fairly expensive. And then on Windows, there's a thing called, well, actually, let's not do that yet. I'm going to be running a Windows computer that's on my Mac, a virtual Windows computer that's on my Mac. I don't have that set up. I do have it set up so I can run a virtual Windows computer in the cloud. And so I was wondering if we would do that today. We ended up not doing that. So there you go. Thanks so much for spending time with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
And
Peter.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you,
thanks. We
Peter.
covered a lot of basics. That was really good.
Yay. When we're a little bit more set up, we'll cover even more basics. So I'm looking forward to that.
Sounds great. Thanks, Peter.
See some of you tomorrow morning, and I'll see the rest of you next week sometime, maybe.
Thanks,
Take
Pete.
care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.